Thank you. All right. So, this is a damburu drum, by which a traditional Indian street musician always begins their performance. And they often claim that the damburu is the very same drum that was used by the Hindu deity Shiva when he began the creation of the universe. We're going to start this evening with a little version of a trick. Now, I do Indian magic, and I am an Indian magician, but ironically I got introduced to Indian magic growing up in the US. Why? Because I grew up in the US. My Indian magician uncle was back in India, and he used to ask my father to send him magic props from magic shops in the US. Because in India, Western magic was exotic and different and cool. So my uncle sent us to a magic shop to get him some props, and when I was in the magic shop, I had an interesting experience. The magic shop owner said he had this great deck of magic cards that he could sell me, and I could do a great card trick. In fact, it was only about $8. I was 9 years old at the time, many, many years ago, so I saved up my allowance money and finally bought this pack of magic cards. I was so excited when I took it home, and I opened it up, and I sort of learned my first lesson in magic the hard way, which is that you had to be very careful with what you bought at a magic shop. I had just spent all of my hard-earned allowance money on this pack of magic cards. Now, the magic shop owner could tell I was a little bit disappointed with my purchase because I could see that all the cards were blank on both sides, and I wasn't too happy with this. I was hoping for a different kind of card deck. Well, the magic shop owner said this was an imagination card deck, and if I would just use my imagination, the cards would appear. Of course, I didn't believe him by this point. I had just had them take my money. But he said, no, seriously, kid, take a look. Imagine a card. So I imagined the 7 of diamonds, like a red card that had 7 of diamonds. And as soon as I imagined it, the magic shop owner pointed out to me that it was there. I was a little suspicious, like you guys might be, and I understand that. I thought maybe the magic shop owner had snuck that card in when I wasn't looking. Maybe it had been up his sleeve, or he had palmed it or something. So I immediately named a different card. I said, that's great that the 7 of hearts is there, but what about a black card, like the 6 of spades? As soon as I named the 6 of spades, the magic shop owner showed me that the 6 of spades was also in that magic pack of cards. Now I started getting really curious. If I could use my imagination, maybe if all of you can use your imaginations, could we imagine that every single one of these cards was printed on faces and even on the backs? Well, you have to imagine the back designs first. If you do blue angels riding bicycles, you might think you see it right here on the back of the pack. Now, if everybody works together, this is what the magic shop owner told me years ago, and a magical experience that changed the course of my life. We can imagine that each and every one of these cards have a face and a back. You guys ready? Okay, so use your imagination. I'll just cast a shadow over it. You can see nothing below, nothing coming up my sleeves. But use your imaginations, and you might start to think that now every card in the pack is printed on the faces and on the backs. So that's great. You've used your imagination successfully. And you've got every single card, faces and backs. It is good, it's good, although I often point out and warn people that it's an imagination thing. If you let your attention wander and start looking at your phones and not paying attention, it will go back to being just how it was in the beginning, a bunch of blank cards. Okay, weird. So, I brought, especially for our MC, Ghanshyam, something that might remind him and me of home. You're probably aware of the fact that if somebody walks up on stage with 3 dangerous-looking objects, namely these, he's probably going to juggle them. And you're right. But I want to spend a minute telling you about what these are and why it's so weird that I'm going to juggle these. These are not just juggling knives. They're not ordinary knives. They're called kukris. They are the daggers that Nepali Gurkha soldiers carry into battle when they fight. Now, the Nepali Gurkhas are so brave that they actually serve in the armies of 3 different countries. Nepal, of course, also India, and also the United Kingdom, which still has Gurkha regiments to this day. Now, unlike a juggling knife, the Gurkha kukri is curved forward. It has a very small handle that's only big enough for your hand. And Gurkhas used to perform the job of security guards at many buildings in India. My Indian magician uncle once asked a Gurkha to show him his knife. The Gurkha was a little hesitant, but eventually he did take out the knife and show my uncle the blade. But before he put the blade back into the sheath, he cut his thumb lightly. And my uncle said, "Why did you do that?" And the Gurkha told my uncle that the Gurkhas believe that the blade represents the goddess, the Devi, and that every time it comes out of the sheath, it needs to be fed with a little bit of blood, either that of yours or that of your enemies. And I'm hoping, I'm not a Gurkha, so I'm hoping that I can put the blade back in the sheath without getting any blood on it now. But there is this nasty little thing on the side called the blood groove. I don't know what that's for, but it doesn't sound very good. The other little notches here are for wrapping up barbed wire. Okay, so this doesn't last very long. As I said, it's a very short demonstration. We got to get the feel. Each of these knives is handmade. That's the hard one. What it wants to do is it wants to start flipping like this, but we have to keep it in a nice angle of motion like this. All of you physics people, you realize the problem here. Okay. That's good. And let's check the third one. Okay, so I know Dr. Pancras loves photos, but please no flash while I'm juggling the knives, okay? Yeah. We don't want to end up with that. Here goes, the juggling of the Gurkha cookery. All right, good. So, glad I survived. We'll end on a little philosophical note. Just thinking about this event made me think about something very interesting. This idea of something that connects us together. A sutra. Now, sutra means thread in Sanskrit. You might have heard of the Kama Sutra, sort of a famous book. But there are other sutras, Buddhist sutras, Hindu sutras. And the word is actually cognate with our English word, suture, which also means thread. So I brought some cotton thread in here to illustrate this idea that when people leave their homelands and their original place of birth, they sometimes feel like they're leaving behind important things. Over 45 years ago, my father-in-law came as an international student to the United States from India to study at the University of Wisconsin. And when he came, he left behind his family. He left behind much of his friends and his social circle. He left behind his language. He used to speak Gujarati and Hindi, and he came to Wisconsin, middle of nowhere, sort of a very, English-speaking place. He even stopped being a vegetarian. His name was Dinesh Naveen Chand Kapadia, but people couldn't say that back in Madison, Wisconsin, back in the 1960s. So people started calling him Dino, a nickname that he kept for the rest of his life. So he left behind his family, his friends, his dietary habits, and even his name. So all of these threads over the years might have seemed as if they had become disjointed. And I know from having had the experience of going the other direction, being an international student studying in South Asia, it can seem a bit confusing. But I want to suggest that by events like this, when we get together and we celebrate the different cultures and we acknowledge and celebrate the things that each of them bring, it helps to bind the ties together, all of the little threads that make up our international community here at Albright, whether they're from Asia, or Africa, or Europe, or the Middle East. And what we try to do, and if we do it properly, it sometimes works in a funny sort of way, is we try to put them all together into one and keep our thread together again.